so thrilled to expand the family, but I'm also running out of energy. So
PetWell is technically an acronym. And so did you guys approach it like that, or did you come up with the name and then decide that you wanted an easy way to remember the core values? Or how did you kind of?
yes, so we came up with the name first, PetWell Partners, and then as we started trying to build out our culture, I forget who it was that came up with the idea to use PetWell as an acronym, but we kind of as a team came together to think about what are the important kind of pillars of our culture. Then we came up with pets and their families come first, extra efforts to detail, trust and support your team, welcome change, seek improvement, every job is important, listen and communicate openly and often, and lend grace to others. I would say those 7 statements are a really important part of our culture. While there's not a lot of PetWell branding in the hospitals, we do have a poster that shows that acronym and those sayings in the staff areas. And as a sneak preview, we've redesigned it, and we should be sending out new posters to the hospitals pretty soon. So stay tuned for that. Long overdue. But it's just something that's easy and catchy and something that we can all remember and look to. I think for us, the culture is really kind of the building blocks, and we want people that identify with those statements, right? The more people we can bring onto the team that identify with the statements, then the better we're all going to be.
Kind of incorporating those philosophies, you also have the happy, healthy pets, as everybody has HHP at the end of their emails. Who came up with that idea?
So that came about at our DVM summit, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. We were just having a conversation to try and figure out what is our why. And we wanted to come out with something that really all stayed together with. And so, it's our doctors that, figured out the why is the happy, healthy pets, right? And I'll flip the script and ask you, how do you think about the PetWell acronym, and how do you think about happy, healthy pets?
Well, the thing that always struck me is I've done a lot of training with meditation, and which is how I get such a calm demeanor. And one of the things you can internally recite is I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm well. And so I always thought of that when I first heard the HHP, which I thought was kind of cool because it creates an internal mantra almost, and it's something that you can at least subconsciously apply to every time you walk into that exam room. Because every time, you go into an exam room, the person and their pet that you're about ready to see, they don't care what you just did. They don't care about if you're having a bad day or you just had to do something sad or do something happy. They're there for your full attention. And so in my mind, kind of reciting that concept just helps center me and refocus, this is their time. They deserve all of me at this moment. And so that's how I kind of incorporate it. As a hospital, we sat down and we created our own 7 core values. And I had a company make decals that we put of the core values on the wall in treatment. And I made an extra HHP that we put on the door that's in the hallway in the exam rooms. So if any receptionist turns around and looks into treatment, that's the first thing they see, because it's right above the door. If I'm getting ready to go in an exam room, I look at it and then I go into the exam room. And so for me, I think it's just a neat, quick centering. And I don't know, that was probably not what anybody thought about, but I think for me, it helps instill that kind of calmness and focus.
Well, I think it's perfect. And, I would hope everybody would kind of take their own spin on it, right? And figure out what's the best way to maximize the utilization of it. But, at the end of the day, when you're in the exam room, you're trying to get to the place where that pet will be its happiest and its healthiest for a long time, right?
Yeah.
One of the things I think that's so neat about the PetWell acronym is whenever we do have to have those tough conversations, typically there's always one of those phrases that you can borrow from that we've all kind of agreed to be associated with, to help kind of frame the conversation and get the team where we kind of where they want to go, where we want to go as a group, as an organization.
It is interesting interesting because if, there's any sort of internal conflict and a staff member comes to Jess, Claire, and myself, frequently they'll come in and say, I'm having trouble lending grace, which I always think is a very good, because they're aware,
Yep.
like you're having an issue,
Yep.
you're aware of the issue, and it's a good kind of jumping off.
That's very good emotional intelligence right there. That awareness.
I like that it means something. It's not just a name. I like that it has an underlying meaning, like the Illuminati of parent companies.
I'm curious to ask you, how much fun are you having with Vetsplaining?
I really like it. I got a little too into the prep for a lot of the medical ones, only to then realize that those were the ones that were the most boring because it was too analytical. And so I'm excited to do more of the interviews because I think it's more interactive. It's fun to hear more than one voice. But I also like that it lets me figure out how I want to phrase things when I don't necessarily think about it in the exam room. And I think that the non-medical part, which when Anita and I were first talking about it, I was like, I don't want to talk about non-medical stuff. I'm a veterinarian. And so I wasn't excited about that part, but that's actually, for me, the more fun part because it takes me out of that comfort zone and it makes me kind of look at different aspects of veterinary medicine I wouldn't normally have evaluated.
Now, where do you rank on the vet podcast charts?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. To be honest, I don't know how you figured that out. I just learned I can go back and look up how many times people have listened to it. I usually just put it out there and ignore it. Kind of like when I do the Facebook Lives. I have a rule, I never watch them because I put it out there. It's done. We'll see what happens. But I do know that in the last 2 months, the amount of downloads and listens has doubled, which is pretty cool. And I started it in August, and platform that releases it, Spreaker, they track plays and downloads, and I think they do it from every platform. I don't know if it counts iTunes and Spotify, but since August, there's been almost 1,100 downloads.
1,100 downloads. That's awesome. For all your episodes total.
Yeah, for all the episodes total. And I don't think they're all my mom, so that's exciting.
Yeah, well, I'm probably good for at least 30 downloads.
It's exciting. I mean, I like it. I like that it's an adventure, and it is kind of an audio track of my evolution as a veterinarian. Especially the non-medical things, because as I grow and evolve as a person. And then I just sent out an email to most of the headquarters at Houston asking if anybody wants to interview. I think that, getting as many voices out there is pretty cool.
Awesome. Well, good. Well, we're excited for you and pleased to be on the journey.
Yeah. Well, thank you for listening, and thanks for. I wanted to do a podcast, and then I chickened out and I did the Facebook Lives for Independent Hill, and then Anita happened to be visiting, and we were talking about it, and she's like, "Oh, David Strauss loves podcasts. I bet you could do one." And I said, "Okay, well, I'll try it." And then I just kept doing it. So it was fun. I created a website to kind of promote the Vetsplaining, but I also on there can include, I'm going to have a whole section because we're revamping how we're doing staff training at Independent Hill. So instead of just doing lectures, we're doing hands-on, and then we're also doing quizzes, a game show style. Mm-hmm. So after we do the quiz in hospital, I'm going to post the PowerPoint movie of it on the website under the heading, "Are you smarter than an IHVC team member?" So clients can take the quizzes and see how they stack up. Everybody can learn something. So I think that'd be pretty cool. Well, thank you very much for interviewing with me.
I hope I'm invited back. We'll see how the ratings are.
I think that about wraps it up. As always, thank you for listening to this installment of Vetsplaining. I hope you enjoyed your time with me and ideally learned at least one new thing for the day. If you have any questions or suggestions for future topics, feel free to leave a comment below or email info@independenthillvet.com and put podcast topic or podcast comment in the subject line. Until next time.